Chapter 1 First Sentinel. One Lar's apartment was a carefully constructed ruse. The floor was spotted with yard-high stacks of books and carpeted by papers, schematics, and yet more papers. Delicate arrangements of spare parts and sealed bottles of reagents formed mounds outside lanes of traffic. Bookshelves filled the walls from floor to ceiling along three sides of the apartment, broken only by a closet, the hall to the bedrooms, and the opening to the kitchen. Over the last 20 years, the apartment had settled into One Lar's image, scholarly, brilliant, and scattered. That was the intent. His neighbors wouldn't expect that One Lar Ganyu Paksa, absent-minded artificer and handyman, could also be First Sentinel, leader of the Shields of Audec-Hal, the only major force standing against the rule of the oligarchs. If they thought he was barely organized enough to keep track of whose oven he had to fix by Monday and mumbled incoherently when pressed with small talk, then they wouldn't ask questions about why he was up at all hours and never seemed to be around for parties. One Lar stood above a table, squinting to focus on the job at hand. He was approaching his 71st birthday, but he looked no older than any other Ikonolo. He had the same square jaw, the same high forehead, sun-yellow skin, and dark brown hair. For other races, speech patterns, clothes, and personality were most of what set Ikonolo apart. Since each man looked like every other, each woman a perfect copy of one another in features and build. Living side by side with the other races, Ikonolo had learned to differentiate themselves intentionally. For One Lar, it became just another part of his cover. Favoring his left leg, One Lar stepped over a short pile of books about rare reagents. He'd cracked his hip a year ago in a skirmish with the Smiling King, and it still took 3 cups of Donmo tea to push back the pain. One Lar sipped from his 3rd cup of the day, taking a break from mixing the unguent that would refresh the enchantment on the shield's pendants. The oligarchs had stepped up their patrols in preparation for the upcoming summit, especially in Cobalt 3's territory, and Sapphire had nearly been caught in Blue Town while on her way back home.
So how do I make them last longer?
One Lar asked himself, holding the formula in his head. He'd been enchanting the pendants for 50 years, protecting the shields from the Ikonolo birthright of reading threads. Any Ikonolo could see the emotional threads that connected a person's heart to the people and world around them. Whether it was the stark yellow of fear, the brilliant emerald of compassion, or the blood red of rage, each thread stood out to his people, thicker where the emotion was strong, thin where it was tenuous. Without the amulets to conceal their threads, any Ikonolo servant of the oligarchs could identify his or any shield's threads and bring the tyrant's wrath. And One Lar had no desire to see the oligarch's servants knocking down his door or setting his building ablaze. His amulets gave them all false threads, ready-made identities that would lead Ikonolo anywhere but to the truth. The alarm bracer on his left arm whooped. He looked down at the 6 gems to see the ruby was pulsing with light.
That's blurred fists. Must be something on his patrol,
One Lar thought. He looked at the amulets, then to the window, and sighed. He gulped down the rest of his tea and stomped over to his bedroom, crumpling papers as he went. Where the living room was shabby, his bedroom was spotless, everything in its place. One Lar threw open the closet and pulled down his long coat, one of the raiment suits, a pair of boots, and his belt. As fast as he could, One Lar donned the raiment that marked him as First Sentinel, leader of the Shields of Audec-Hal. He pulled on a black shirt emblazoned with a watchful yellow eye and a turret on the chest, the symbol he'd chosen not long after the tyrants had claimed his city. He slipped into his black linen pants and then snapped on his belt. The product of decades of work, his belt contained smoke bombs and spelled wands, throwing knives, and a handful of specialized artifacts for their most powerful foes. He wasn't as young as he used to be, but as the saying goes, old age and trickery beat out youth and speed every time.